Kirito, an 11-year-old boy, is working with his friend Yu-Gi-Oh. They have been trying to cut a gigantic tree called Giga's Cedar for 15 months. The tree prevented the growth of their village. Their friend Alice brings some food for them. She is the daughter of the Grand Chief. They go into a cave to freeze their meal, and a myth is very popular about a hero named Berkuli there. The hero followed the Rule River to the north. He took hold of a beautiful sword in the treasure, but the instant he did, the hero Berkuli received a huge piece of ice in that cave. The next day, they enter a cave and see a blue rose sword, but it's too heavy. They take some ice from there. When they are going, they see two knights fighting there. The knight from the human side kills the Knight of Darkness. The next day, an Axiom Church knight comes there to take Alice. Alice is the highest governor who makes decisions. Kirito is standing there quietly, something Paris in his eyes. Alice is taken by the knight. Then Kirito wakes up from his full drive as Kirigaya Kazuto, and he completely loses his memories. He goes to meet with his friends, where they play a game and they recreate the opening team. The coordinator of the other team is Shio. Then, Kirito sits with his friend, and they talk about soul translator technology. He says the brain is more or less a clump of brain cells. People called it fluctuating lights. Kirito tells them the function of STL technology. Kirito is walking with his friend Asuna, when a man who is the survivor of the laughing coffin, Johnny Black, comes and attacks. Kirito takes that attack on himself and saves his friend. When he wakes up, he thinks that he is dreaming. He remembered his memory when he was walking with Asuna. He calls his friends aloud. Then he meets with the boy named Yu-Gi-Oh and tells him that he was lost there. Yu-Gi-Oh says to help him, but he has some work to complete. Yu-Gi-Oh also gave him food to eat. Kirito thinks that his name is very familiar to him. Then Yu-Gi-Oh tells Kirito his past story. His childhood friend Alice always brought food for him at noon, and they also played together. One day they entered a cave, and she accidentally entered a dark territory. The next day, a knight comes and brings her to the central city. Kirito thinks that the story is very familiar to him. He tells Yu-Gi-Oh to go to the city, but he says it's so far away from his village. He is cutting a tree and says that it sucks up Terraria's blessing. So long as the tree is standing there, they will never be able to grow wheat there. Most of the villagers call it the demon tree. Then Kirito tries to hit it, but he can't. Yu-Gi-Oh laughs at seeing him. Then they meet with a boy named Jink, and Yu-Gi-Oh tells them that he is a lost boy of Vectia. Jink asks Kirito about his calling. Kirito says that he may be a swordsman, but he doesn't know because he loses his memories. Then he shows his sword techniques to him. Yu-Gi-Oh brings him home, and Selka gives Kirito the necessary things for sleep. When she goes away, he thinks a lot. He thinks if he gets someone's help, he can get to that so-called central city and sleep there. The next morning, Selka comes to Kirito to wake him up. Yu-Gi-Oh is working, and Kirito talks about Selka. Yu-Gi-Oh says she is the little sister of Alice, living in church. Some children live at church after losing their parents. Then they talk about a high-level, scared artist who stops life from decreasing. But there's nobody who can wield this power, not even Zachariah. But they have to chop the tree first, and then Yu-Gi-Oh skews something to Kirito. It's a blue rose sword in the fairy tales, but the story of Knight Berkuli is not a story but real. Yu-Gi-Oh goes there with his friend, and she is taken away. Yu-Gi-Oh tries to help her, but he can't. Kirito asks about the material of the sword. Kirito says it may be a divine object or may be made with the help of God. Then he hits the tree with the sword, and Yu-Gi-Oh says it's impossible for them. But he succeeded in cutting the tree, and they both tried it. Then at night, he asks Selka about her older sister. She says that Yu-Gi-Oh is still thinking about her older sister, and has never smiled since she was taken away to the central city. When she was there, he always had a smile on his face, but she doesn't know why her sister was taken away to the central city. Kirito tells her about the end of the mountains, and the next day she disappears. Kirito understands that she goes to the end of the mountain, and Yu-Gi-Oh and Kirito go after her. When they reached Yu-Gi-Oh, who showed dark territory to Kirito, they saw a group of goblins catch her at the end of the mountain. Yu-Gi-Oh is very afraid to see the goblins who are coming toward them, but Kirito tells him to fight with a sword. One of the goblins says he is challenging the Yugachi, but he says no, he just kills them. He fights with goblins and beats them. While fighting, Yu-Gi-Oh saves Kirito from the goblin, and he is injured a lot. He tells Kirito that they and Alice were friends and that they were born on the same day and died on the same day. Kirito is very worried. Then he attacks the goblin because he is very angry at him. Selka uses her healing magic, taking risks with their lives to heal the wounds of Yu-Gi-Oh. Kirito hears Alice's voice saying that she is waiting for them in Central City. After a day, Siri asks about his wounds, and then Yu-Gi-Oh tells him that Kirito is their friend from childhood. Then Kirito asks about the voice he hears, but Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't hear it because he is unconscious at that time. Kirito attacks the tree with the blue rose sword and succeeds in making a large cut. Yujiro is surprised and says to teach him the sellout technique. As he wants to bring Alice back, he suffers a lot, and he regrets why he didn't do anything to save her. New state is sword practice with Kirito to become strong and finally fell down the tree. He has been waiting for Kirito for the last 6 years. For falling the demon tree, Yujiro achieved a triumph, and he can select his next calling. And Yujiro decides to become a swordsman. He promised Selka to come back soon. The next day, they start their journey toward the central city. Kirito is Kirigaya. Kazuta takes an attack on him to save Asuna. He is in the hospital, and his friends are waiting for him. The doctor says he is no longer in danger. His brain sustained some danger, and he might never regain consciousness. The doctors didn't even know the extent of the damage until he had an MRI. Asuna is very upset. The doctor says Kirito should be admitted to the other hospital for better equipped facilities and a better result. Mr. Kikuka comes to Asuna and asks about Kirito's parents. Asuna is standing outside of the hospital where Kirito is being treated. Then Asuna tells her friends that there are no visitors allowed in the hospital until he recovers. They were suspicious about his presence in the hospital because there's no data on his name in the hospital. Kirito's mobile phone is also out of range. All of his friends are going to the place where Kirito is. Asuna thanks Klein for helping. They tell Klein that they also use the soul technique to read and write human souls, but they get nothing. Klein says that sometimes the soul is an extraordinary invention. Asuna and some friends reached Wrath in the middle of the ocean by helicopter. Dr. Kujiro received an email saying that Kazuki Kirigaya was on the old Sao server. She found his email address in the contact list on the computer. The man asks what she is doing with the doctor. Asuna says she requests that Dr. Kujiro take her, because she is the only one who can take Asuna with her. Then Asuna explains her whole plan and how she gets there to the male doctor. Then Asuna asks the male doctor where Kirito is. Another person named Haigi says to Kikuaka that he knows that the kid becomes the biggest security hole. Kikuka says yes, he was right. Then the doctor tells Asuna that the injection that hits Kirito is very dangerous and that his brain is damaged. So Wrath is the only place in the world that has the technology to treat him with CL. If they use CL to directly stimulate his fluctlight, they can induce a new neuron. They learn the method of recopying a human using a fluctlight. They used it to restore his memory. They do this so they learn new things by themselves, and they have no need for others in this. They stay away from there because it takes some time. The strict rules of the Axiom Church may affect Kirito. Then Dr. Kujori apologizes to the doctor for doing this and asks why they went here. Don't tell them about the fact. Asuna also feels sorry for this and says she believes they can do it. The doctor shouted things they started. Then Haiga connected, and someone sent him a message saying to keep calm, as he was aware of the danger of a fluctlight. Asuna's friends ask about Kirito. She says he is in a machine and she cannot see his face. Then she meets with Kirito's nurse. Then Kujori tells her and Kayaba's story to Asuna, and she doesn't know anything about him. She says that she has a bomb in her chest. That's the only present he gave her. She has to collaborate with him on his terrifying project. Then Asuna understands her, and also says her days with Kirito are the best. Asuna says they have to face what they did. Kirito is sleeping, and Yujiro awakens him. They are talking about how 2 years have passed very quickly. 2 years ago, they won the sword fighting tournament and joined the Zikaria garrison. They meet with Liana Senpai, and they ask her for help. She tells the children it's their day of rest, so they forget about work. When she goes away, Yujiro says Sortiliana Senpai is very beautiful and has such a presence. At night, Kirito thinks Lina Senpai is powerful and has recorded top-notch training in swordsmanship since she was a child. Then Kirito's sword practice is shown with Lina Senpai, and at least Kirito is defeated by her. He's going outside, and a lady tells him to make sure he is not late for a meal. When Kirito and Yujiro are eating a meal, 2 people are talking about them and say they are an eccentric bunch. Yujiro asks Kirito not to pay attention to them. Yujiro says that he thinks that Kirito's memories are coming back. Yujiro says that if his memories come back, what does he want to do? He says if he becomes a knight, he will accompany him. In his quest to find Alice, who was taken by Axiom Church, he says grudgingly that he goes back to his home. Kirito says he will not return home. He is a swordsman, and what swordsman wouldn't strive to become an integrity knight? A man gives them a sword free of charge. When Kirito is practicing some garbage, he drops some garbage on Levantine, who becomes angry at this disrespectful behavior. He tells Kirito to fight with a sword, and Senpai says he is very dangerous. When they are ready to fight, Senpai advises Kirito and says Levantine is engaging in one-point duels. He's planning to convert Kirito's strength into blood and absorb it. She says this to Kirito once, and he promises to show her everything. Now he has to fulfill his promise and show his strength to her by fighting with Levantine. They begin to fight, and Kirito defeats him. Everyone praises him and Senpai is very happy. Senpai says to Kirito that she thinks the reason she couldn't defeat Volo is because he passes down the high Norkian style. She is happy to be his mentor. At night, Kirito is walking outside when two men come to him and say they want to compliment him on his combat and also say that he wants to fight with him. They also put something in his pocket. When they go back, he checks his pocket and finds the flowers he grew in the garden. They ruined all the flowers, and to see this, he's very disappointed. When Senpai tells him that it's her favorite flower, Kirito wants to see them raised with the power of his imagination, and he weeps a lot. But then he sows other beautiful flowers there, and with the beautiful presence of all the magic, his flower blooms again. The next day, Senpai fights with Levantine and wins the match. Then Kirito gives those flowers to Senpai, and she becomes very happy. When Yujio is sitting with friends, she tells Kirito that she has done all the cleaning without any issues. Kirito took some honey pies for them, and the girls became happy and said to meet them tomorrow. When they have their backs, Yujio tells Kirito to talk with each other. Kirito teaches Yujio sword techniques and gives him examples of Levantine, Lena Senpai, and a few others. He tells him to wonder about something special about his sword. When Yujio is practicing, the two men again come to him and say that he will teach them, but Yujio denies it. He remembers Kirito saying that Rayos and Hubert probably naturally compare themselves to others, so they look down on guys who are not from the capital like them. Yujio thinks it is a great opportunity. He says to Humbert to honor him with a lesson, and he wants to be hit by his sword. Then they are both ready for a fight, and Humbert feels pride and thinks that he fights with his Nokian style and that he is the commoner. But Yujio is attacking him, and Rayos ends the match with a draw. Humbert says to him that his outlandish moves were greatly entertaining. After that, Yujio tells Kirito this, and they discuss the topic for a while. Kirito asks about tomorrow's work, but Yujio says tomorrow's a rest day and a get-together. The next day, they go to the forest and Frenica tells them about the noble and the things her father tells her. Then Yugeo and Kirito talk with Humbert about stopping Frenica from abusing him. When they come back, Tai says her whole apology to Yujio and tells him that she wants a favor to represent their academy in a showmanship tournament, and then he will be pointed out as an aristocrat, like Azurika, the dorm supervisor for the Novika trainees. But he thinks he is striving to compete in a unification tournament to become an integrity knight and be reunited with Alice. That's his aim. Kirito and Yujio are sitting, and they hear a bell. Kirito plunges from the window to check what's going on. Then Frenica comes to Yujio, tells her that Humbert is harassing her, and gives her strange orders that she can't explain. Ronnie and Thais go to Humbert, but they have still not returned. Yujio runs fast to stop them from becoming his Humbert target. Yujio goes and asks them about Roni and Thais. They entered a room, and they were bound by a rope. Humbert says they are disrespectful to them, so they do this. Yujio can't do anything because it's a lawful judgment by a noble according to the basic imperial law and taboo index. If Yujio stops them from doing something, then he becomes a criminal who breaks the law. But he couldn't control himself and attack them with a sword. They are going to cut his head, but Kirito comes and saves Yujio. Kirito fights with Rayos, and he fails to keep his fight with the commoner. Kirito cuts both of his arms, and he is dying. He asks Humbert for help, but Humbert already has one arm. Rayos died there writhingly. Humbert runs from there, then Thais comes to Yujio and says sorry, but Yujio says don't worry. Then Azurita comes and says she will hand them over. She also says thanks for doing that, which he hasn't done in many years. Yujio and Kirito go to the girl. Yujio thinks he sees that combination of blue and golden somewhere. She is the overseer of the capital city of Centauria and an integrity knight of Axiom Church. When she turned her face to them, Yujio was stunned to see that she was Alice. Yujio comes to Alice and is going to touch her, but she attacks him and asks him not to try to touch her without permission. Kirito realizes that it's Alice, whom Yujio is looking for. Then Ronnie and Thais come there and say they want to talk with them. Alice gives them a minute. Ronnie gives some food to Kirito, and Thais says she works hard to become an integrity knight and escapes them. Then Alice comes and takes them away, and their friends are looking for them. In 2026, Kirito is in a machine, and Asuna is looking at him. Asuna goes and sees a robot from Mr. Haigo, whose name is Aikimon. Then they talk about the chip and the machinery used in it. In the year 380, Yujio and Kirito are sitting and thinking that all of that happened seems to be a dream. Then they talk about Alice. Kirito remembers once Alice said she was waiting for them on the top of the cathedral, but it's so far away. They managed to break their chains and were ready to run from there. Yujio says he will find out how Alice lost her memories and turn her back to who she was. When they come out, they say that all the Integrity Knights' real memories are replaced by fake ones, and they seal their thinking. Kirito says if they become Integrity Knights, then they may end up like Alice. Yujio says they have to visit their hometowns. Kirito says he wants to too, whether he regains his memories or not. but he will always be with him on this journey. Then an integrity knight, Eldry, comes there to send them back to the underground prison. He was ordered to spend his night there. After running from prison, they meet Eldry, an integrity knight who has a divine weapon. He can make his sword as long as he wants. He is from the north, and he has won 4 umpire tournaments. Yu-Gi-Oh recalls his memories to him. He also tells his mother's name to them. Then another integrity knight comes there and attacks Kirito, and they run away. A light comes there, and they enter it and reach the Grand Library, and a girl saves them there. Her name is Cardinal. The librarian tells them that the whole history is stored in the Great Library. She also says there's no god there. The 4 people who came there first were considered gods. Kirito tells her that she herself is an autonomous program to control the virtual world. Kirito says the name of the people who created the world is Wrath. 450 years ago, when the century was no more than a village, 4 outsiders made the impossible possible with hard work. One of them is very inelegant and selfish. His children are too selfish. Those selfish children become the children of the nobles, and if the high ministers of the Axiom Church tell him sorry for his first political marriage and a girl named Quinella, she can heal the wounds. Kettle thinks of her god, and she introduces a book called Taboo Index. By the time she grew old and opened a door, that's it. Quinella restores her beauty and life. She couldn't see anyone equal to her, not even the cardinal system. She says she is a supervisor as well as an administrator and also a pontifex of the Axiom Church. Under the rule of an absolute administrator, the world entered a peaceful period. But after 70 years, Quinella's soul's capacity to preserve memories is filled. Another demonic idea comes to her mind, and by using a secret technique, she fuses the soul and memories of the girl. Actually, the girl was Cardinal. But she made a mistake by disposing of her previous self, and they become the 2 gods with equal authority. There are 2 features of the Cardinal system, the main and the sub. Cardinal tells her it is the sub-process of Quinella that corrects her mistakes. She tells about the power of the knight Berculi. Then she met him with a spider named Charlotte, who had been keeping an eye on the 2 of them since they left their village. She concludes that she should delete every fluctuation in the world. She asks if he wants to save anyone, and Kirito says she has to wait alone in this place. Then she inquires whether he accepts or rejects the proposal. He says he will take part in the mission but still says to try to find some other way. Then they both come to Yu-Gi-Oh, and Kirito tells him that the Cardinal wants to help them fight against Integrity Knights. He tells her she has a dream to defeat the administrator and regain her status. Then Yu-Gi-Oh asks her about Alice, and she tells them they put a parody module on their foreheads that blocks links to memories. But it's not easy to defeat any knight without killing him. She gives them something and says to use it anywhere on Alice's body. She will send Alice into a deep sleep. She says the fate of the world rests on them. They entered the armory to take their swords. They also see armor there. When they are moving back, an Integrity Knight attacks them. New talks to them and says all of the Integrity Knights don't have a past from the moment they are summoned there to heaven. He says one of their arms has to be burned off. When he fires at them with his bow, Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh are too ready to fight. Kirito also uses her magic and makes ice before him to stop the fire coming toward him, but it breaks, and he struggles hard to stop it with the sword. At last, he fell and told Yu-Gi-Oh not to stop. Then Yu-Gi-Oh dodges him. He remembers one saying that the most important thing in the world is what someone infuses with his sword. He attacks Knight with full strength, remembering Alice, and defeats him. Yu-Gi-Oh says he uses sword skills. The Knight says there are many swords and skills he has never seen in his life, but his skills are suffused. The Knight asks their names, and they tell their names to the Knight. Then he tells them the way, and says if he fails in his mission to kill them, his administrator will get his armor and divinity object. That's very shameful for him, so he wants them to kill him without hesitation. Then he says his name, Du Solbert, who took Alice away. Yu-Gi-Oh says he bound her hands with the chain when she was only 11 years old. Yu-Gi-Oh couldn't control himself and was going to kill, but Kirito stopped him. The administrator stole all his memories. When they are sitting, they see 2 girls looking at them. Kirito asks them who is there. The 2 girls ask Yu-Gi-Oh and Kirito if they are from Dark Territory. Yu-Gi-Oh tells them they don't hear about them. Those 2 sisters say that they look like ordinary humans, but books describe them in different ways. They look very innocent, and Yu-Gi-Oh says to them that they will be in trouble if they are found with them. They say anybody's not allowed to come out. The girls suddenly attack them and drag them up the steps. They say there's no difference whether they died there or on the 51st floor. These 2 sisters are born and raised inside the cathedral, and administrators order monks and nuns to create them. To use them is an experiment to restore a completely lost life with sacred art. The administrator made them an Integrity Knight with a special exception. They say they gave them poison to take them to the 51st floor to see the administrator. They are very happy, but suddenly Kirito attacks them and then says that he already knows about them. So he starts using poison resolving techniques before they get near them. And she also knows if there's no permission to come out of the room, then how do these two come out? Kirito tells them he doesn't kill them, but wants to see how powerful they are. Then, Kirito fights with the Knights of Finaccio. Then he fights with Finaccio, and Yu-Gi-Oh also attacks her and freezes everything, but Kirito melts the ice on her body. Kirito says they can't defeat her with hate. He says to Yu-Gi-Oh that he wants to get Alice back because he loves her. It's the same for him. He wants to save everyone, even Finaccio, because he loves them. A fight happens between Finaccio and Kirito that results in a lot of destruction. Then Yu-Gi-Oh heals his wounds, and he wakes up. But still, he is worried about her, who wants to kill him. Kirito makes him understand that he doesn't have a reason to hate Finaccio as a human or the four whirling blades anymore. Kirito comes to Finaccio, but she has lost a lot of blood. He used the thing to heal her wounds, as given by the Cardinal. Yu-Gi-Oh stops him because it will be useful for administering, but he doesn't have any other way to save her. Then Cardinal connects with them and says there is no need to apologize, because she is aware of the situation. She took the body and said it may take some time to recover, so she took care of her. Then the operator comes there to bring them to the top floor. She tells them that she has been doing her calling for 107 years. She says she likes to fly freely in the sky. They walk and reach Alice, and Kirito tells Yu-Gi-Oh not to attack. Alice says that they are the two who killed Eldri, Du Solbert, and Finaccio and reached there. She took out her sword and they started to fight, but she threw them away. Kirito starts his fight with Alika, and she tells him she doesn't want to disturb the peace and is ready for death. Yu-Gi-Oh comes from behind and freezes them, but it's in vain. She removes herself from that and says she will fight with Yu-Gi-Oh next. There was a huge blast that happened, and Kirito and Alice disappeared. Yu-Gi-Oh cries so loudly that he leaves them alone. Kirito is hanging, holding Alice with him. She says she likes to die instead of being saved by a sinner. He says she is an idiot, and she rebukes him for her insult. Kirito understands her, and she keeps quiet. Kirito tells them they want to save the human empire from dark territory. He tells them they can't let her die because she's important. She asks them why their sword causes bloodshed. He tells him that Rayo's and Humbert's deaths are the cause. Then she generates a chain there, and they climb up step by step. Alice says she finds herself in a situation like this for the first time. Kirito helps her a lot to climb up. On Monday, 2026, Asuna is sitting with Kijori, and they see a fishing boat in the sea. Another person comes and tells them it is an escort ship, and then he goes away. In the year 380, Kirito and Alice are still climbing. Then they see something there. They become happy to see them because they can stay there. When they reacted to it, there were a lot of monsters. They fight with them and save themselves with great difficulty. When they reached the place to stay, they were also fighting with each other and rebuking each other, and the monster again came there. Alice says she doesn't think of her as an arrogant noble like others. She tells him to wipe the blood of a minion from his face. Yu-Gi-Oh thinks he met Kirito 2 years ago. He's always with him, but it's the first time he is on his own. Yu-Gi-Oh Lina opens the door and he knows that there are integrity knights inside. Yu-Gi-Oh starts a fight with a man, and he asks about Finaccio. Yu-Gi-Oh says that she is alive and is under treatment. The man says, according to the Prime Minister, he has a partner who was not present at the time. That must be dueling with the lead somewhere. Then they started their fight. The man says he fights with the knights from Dark Territory a couple of times, but he doesn't have pleasant memories. So the men call his name, saying that he is Berkulai, and Yu-Gi-Oh becomes nervous. Berkulai used his trump card and threw him away. Berkulai tells us that his sword is part of a divine object named Clock. The Pontifex called it a system clock or something strange. All the knights, including Alice and Finaccio, were summoned after him. Then Yu-Gi-Oh uses enhanced armor to freeze him, but Berkulai breaks the ice into pieces. Then he attacks and defeats him, showing his power over him. Remembering his last scene, Cardinal tells them ways to perfect weapon control, enhance, and release. Kirito thinks that Eldri can control his weapon by enhancing it. Cardinal says offensive power generated by the release of memories cannot be possibly controlled by swordsmen who've only just learned the art. Yu-Gi-Oh tells Berkulai's story to him, but he heads off to list all his memories. Yu-Gi-Oh says that he is a hero in his village. He is human-like, including Alice, Finaccio, and Eldri. Then the senator comes there, and Berkulai says that the kid is not from Dark Territory. Kirito is sitting on the top with Alice, and he tells her that she is the older sister of Selka. He says he'll tell her everything, whether she believes it or not. Kirito says her memories are sealed by the Pontifex. He says she doesn't know about her memories of where she was born and her family. Then she thinks of her name. He tells her that she is living in the village of Rulide. She has a younger sister who misses her a lot and works hard to be in her sister's footsteps. She says the noble world is not corrupted, but Kirito says everyone is not like that. Some want to protect the world. If they distribute the weapon among all, then everyone can get knowledge. When she heard about her sister, she said she wanted to meet her. She becomes emotional and says she has a sister and parents who are her flesh and blood. She weeps there a lot. Alice says she speaks the name Selka for the first time with her mouth and her throat. Kirito promises to take her to Ruled Village and meet her with her family. Suddenly, she feels her right eye seem to be on fire. Whenever she thinks of defying Pontex, that's happened to her. It seems someone has control over her memories, even her mind. She cries loudly. It's her mind and memories. She wants to protect the world. Yu-Gi-Oh wakes up and thinks about how he got there. Then he sees the administrator and is going to kill him. But she wakes up and tells him that he's alone and nobody loves him, not even her mother and Alice. She shows him a past scene in which Alice and Kurto are sitting together in a forest. She persuades him that she is the only one who lives with him. He wants his friends, but they are far away from him. Kirito thinks about Yu-Gi-Oh and where he is right now. He sends a message to him, and he heals Alice's eye. He says he uses scary art. She still has pain in her eye. That's the proof she decides to fight the Axiom Church. Then they enter from the door, and Alice looks to look at Berkuli's uncle. He was dazed by the ice. This is done by a senator who is given authority to change someone to stone. She is wrong, and his uncle says to stop weeping. Berkuli tells us that Yu-Gi-Oh is taken by the senator, and he is determined by the labyrinth of his memories. He took out his sword from the ice. Alice says Yu-Gi-Oh will be found by the administrator after what happened to her 6 years ago. They hear some strange voices. These are Prime Senator's voices. They come to his room, and she tells him to reverse his scare art from Berkuli. Then he sees Kirito and asks her what she's doing with him. He is a member of Dark Territory. She says yes, and she is too. She tells him the Integrity Knights ate, just like puppets. Senator says yes. He still remembers her first sight. She is so young, sweaty, and innocent. He narrates her whole story to her. They reached Yu-Gi-Oh, but he changed into an Integrity Knight very soon. Kirito comes forward and tells him that he is his partner, and they left the Ruled Village 2 years ago. Yu-Gi-Oh says he doesn't know but thanks him for bringing his sword. Then he says he is going to fight with him. They start fighting, and Kirito says he learned sword techniques from him. They both start to fight, and Kirito remembers everything. That he left the village and headed toward the capital city to get back his childhood friend Alice. Yu-Gi-Oh becomes more powerful, and he throws Kirito away. Kirito says he wishes that one day he would surpass him. Alice says that she can't believe that this lesson is his friend. He is someone who just became an Integrity Knight. He seems too accustomed to battle. Kirito asks him if he doesn't want to go back to Ruled with Alice. Yu-Gi-Oh says he doesn't want to know. He only cares about the one and can do everything for her sake. Kirito remembers people precious to him. Yu-Gi-Oh freezes Kirito and Alice and sends them back to the administrator. She takes off his piety module and he regains his memories. She again assured him that she was the only one who loved her. He attacks the administrator, but she stops him and throws him away. She says it's his last chance, but Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't pay attention to her. They deal with each other and she is more powerful than him. She dodges his attacks and falls him away. Kirito also comes there with Alice, and Yu-Gi-Oh is very happy to see them. He says sorry. He gave in to the administrator's temptations and ended up hurting them. Kirito says he is becoming so cool. He knows what's going on in his mind. Alice says that their Order of Integrity Knights has been destroyed as of today. She talks about the swords of 2 rebels beside her. Her ultimate mission is to safeguard a tranquil lifestyle and peaceful sleep for those without a sword. Senator uses his magic and changes into a big flake giant. Alice says, unfortunately, she could not fight with him. She can't imagine that he has such art. She says to Kirito that she averts him for 10 seconds, and they attack him but don't get closer to him. Quinella asks why he is stumbling in her world. Kirito says to Quinella that in the future, she is going to destroy her world, because she has Integrity Knights who fight against Datum territory. Alice asks if she can protect people if the Order of the Knights falls. She took them from their mothers and their whole families and planted false memories in their minds that they were summoned from a non-existent heavenly realm. She can't trust their loyalty, which seals their memories and thinking. Quinella says she loves them, so she gives them a peace module that frees them from pain and sorrow. Quinella says she is going to erase her memories, so she doesn't think so much and becomes a doll. Alice says she doesn't need her love. She is not a puppet. Kirito criticizes her for what she does. Agnew says it's not her control, but proof of her existence. Quinella uses her magic, and a large multi-weapon comes. It's very strong. Kirito, Alice, and Charlotte were defeated. Then the Cardinal comes there and defeats the multi-weapon. Cardinal goes to Charlotte, who is dead. Cardinal is very grief-stricken. Kirito saves her, and he asks if Charlotte has a light. Cardinal says no. She was the same as NPC. Cardinal thanked her for everything. Now she is free, and she can live as she pleases. Then Cardinal says to Quinella that she is a hollow fool. Quinella tells Cardinal that 200 years ago when she was brought before her, she was trembling and alone. Cardinal says she is a program that deletes her. Then Quinella shows her multi-weapon ability to kill Cardinal and others. She tells them to repel Dark Territory and attack the other side. Then she asks Alice if she's satisfied. as her precious empire will be well protected. If the source of the dried fruit that makes puppets is innocent, then it's not possible for those swords to love her. Cardinal curses on Quinella. She is so far from manipulation by humans. She takes humans' memories and treats them as simulated human units. Quinella says the multi-weapon is made with people, and Cardinal could not kill the humans. She's so foolish. Quinella attacks Cardinal. Kirito tries to help her, but Cardinal tells him to stay away. Yu-Gi-Oh says he is powerless, but he has a way to defeat him. Quinella defeats the Cardinal. Yu-Gi-Oh tells the Cardinal to transform him into a sword, and Quinella becomes agitated to see this. She tries to stop, but Alice comes her way and dodges her attacks. Yu-Gi-Oh transformed into a sword and fought with the multi-weapon. Cardinal is dissatisfied by saying she will live the rest of her life with Kirito. Yu-Gi-Oh defeats the multi-weapon, and the administrator tells him to fight with her. Kirito stops him from doing this. Yu-Gi-Oh fights with the administrator and is defeated badly. Quinella is very happy. She tells Kirito why they come in this way without administrator privileges. Then Quinella is fond of killing Kirito, but Alice saves him. Then he stands up and is ready for a fight with Quinella. Quinella says the fate of the battle is clear. If he wants to suffer, then she makes fate cruel. Both start to fight. Whatever trick Kirito does, she already knows about it. She tells him there's nothing she doesn't know about the driving system in the world. Yu-Gi-Oh calls him and remembers the days when they were friends and grew up together. The day the knights come to take Alice with them, Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't do anything, but Kirito comes forward. Then he gave his sword power to Kirito. Kirito weeps a lot for Yu-Gi-Oh. He fought with Quinella, defeated her, and cut her arm. When she is gone, the senator runs after him with his flame and burns her too. Then he thinks that it's the end. He goes to Yu-Gi-Oh and tries to heal his wounds, but can't. Yu-Gi-Oh says he is fine and happy, and he says he is weak. Kirito refuses and says he has to stand up for Alice. Yu-Gi-Oh says he is very brave and loved by everyone. He thinks Alice also loves him. Yu-Gi-Oh remembers his days spent with Kirito and Alice. She gives him a sword as a birthday gift. Then he dies in Kirito's arms and says he is a hero and his sword is shining. Then Kirito contacts Kikuka, but they are facing some attacks. Kikuka tells him to look at the girl named Alice. The people are about to infiltrate the electrical room. It's dangerous for the surge that will hit Kirigaya's STL and Subcon. Kikuoka tells Hyga to take Asuna and Dr. Kijori to the upper shaft to save Kirito. Kirito is stunned that Asuna's there at Wrath. Then the attackers cut the power and screw poppers are going to stop. Kirito was damaged a lot, and he fell from there. Asuna is also shown there. Siri calls her for the last time. Thus, the anime ends here.